We continue with our discussion on leadership, leaders and leadership. And you're using Bible leaders as examples that we can learn from on how to be better leaders. Some of them, of course, did wrong things, so we learn from their mistakes. And many of them did good things. We learn from what went well. We have picked up a person who is not discussed very much. He's called Andrew, Apostle Andrew. There isn't much information about him, but you still want to draw lessons from this Apostle Andrew. Andrew was apparently a disciple of John the Baptist before becoming an apostle of Jesus. And we read an encounter between Andrew, John, and Jesus in the Gospel of John chapter 1, verse 40. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard what John had said and who had followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, "We have found the Messiah, that is, the Christ," and brought him to Jesus. You know, it sounds like Andrew's nature is such that when you see something good, everybody must know about it, especially your relatives must know about it. So he got to know about Jesus, and he is going to tell his own brother. And so, that's a very important characteristic that we need to have also. Perhaps he had been doing the same thing when he was with John the Baptist. Maybe he was also doing the same. And so it means it's a character of you don't enjoy anything alone. You allow others to join in. Maybe that's because Andrew immediately recognized Jesus as the fulfillment of the long prophesied Messiah. John chapter 1, verse 41. And so it's easy to get excited that, wow, can you imagine? The prophesied Messiah, here he is. How could he keep quiet about it to his brother? Andrew and Philip once even brought some Greeks to Jesus, so he doesn't stop at bringing his own brother. In John chapter 12, he's actually bringing Greeks to Jesus, who are foreigners. He's bringing them to Jesus. What do we learn out of this life of our friend Andrew? A leader must accept and fully commit to the group's purpose. Here we are learning, the moment he learned that Jesus is promising to make him a fisher of men, he starts at his family and goes on beyond his family to even the foreigners, Greeks. Now you need to understand clearly, you should not enter into a group and even become its leader and you are suspect about where they are going. You are suspect about their vision and mission. You do not even agree with their core values. And you want to be their leader? That's not going to work out very well. So whenever you remember Andrew, remember a guy who sold himself fully to the mission he discovered. John the Baptist doing, as the John the Baptist, the one he sees Jesus doing, he is totally so to it. He's not ashamed about it. He is fully committed. Are you ashamed about the group you are leading? Are you ashamed about people in that group? Are you ashamed about where they are intending to go? Are you ashamed about the strategy they are using? You are unlikely to be a good leader. You need to be somebody happy, rejoicing about the good things that are happening, about the group, and talking about it, proud about it, and wanting everybody to accept it. That's really one of the things you learn about Andrew. Andrew was committed, fully committed to the mission of this small band of Jesus and his disciples, and carried his own weight in progressing the matter and the purpose of the group. You know, the two brothers, Andrew and Peter, are both called by Jesus. Another set of brothers, Remember, there was another set called James and John. Here is another set called Andrew and Peter. When they were called, they dumped everything behind to follow Jesus. What had he told them? I'll make you fishers of men. And that attracted them. Instead of fishing fish, they now are going to fish people. They committed themselves fully. This is outstanding if you think about it. Because, can you imagine? They had a long life training in fishing. They were professional fishermen. They abandoned their lifelong job security to follow this young man, because Jesus was a young man, young rabbi, and they don't even know how his future. But they believed in what he was telling them and decided to abandon security in order to take the risk to go with him. You know, they were leaving many things. They were leaving a job, which they are familiar with. They were leaving parents. They were leaving even the area they are used to. Obviously, they had to leave their family behind, walking away at Jesus' invitation. If you really are going to lead a group, you must say no to all previous callings. Of course, in weddings, we normally say no. The guy is told to say no to all others. That means there's no other woman you'll ever be attracted to or go with, or man. But it's the same thing in leadership. Whatever it is you have agreed to join and has gone to the level of becoming its leader, it must cause you to have to drop many other things. Anything that will reduce your availability to this group, anything that is going to make your involvement become suspect because you are being in two contradicting groups, or anything that will not add value to your main calling, must be dropped. A leader must say no to all previous callings if he wants to really take the group and become a great, not just a leader, but a great leader by the speed and progress that will be realized by the group. And you need to ask yourself, is that what you are? Have you said no to things that are contradicting the mission of your group? Or you want to be, there are people who want to be leader of this, leader of that. You are leader everywhere. And in the process, spreading yourself too thin, and in the process, creating contradictions. And you end up with real problems. Your clients have a problem. Your followers have a problem. And the project itself may end up in problems. I like the description that we are getting from the Gospels. The words are, immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. They did not say, give us time, 3 years to make up our mind. And sometimes you can't be a good leader if you don't know how to think on your feet. It's called thinking on your feet. Where if the facts are clear, there's no research that you require, the facts are clear, you don't just don't decide on just because you don't want to decide. Our leaders are people who have the ability to think on their feet. There are times they have to sleep over a matter, but it's because there is information they are looking for. These ones, once they had all the data available, they made up their mind. Let me ask you, what kind of a leader are you? Who will not tend, there's a famous workmate boss who used to be told he had, since he knew if I sign, I've committed myself, if there's an audit, it's me in trouble. When he had to sign a voucher, he would pick a pen, sign in the air, then thinking of signing the actual voucher, he says, come back tomorrow. And many people suffer because they can't get their claims paid because he can't make up his mind. That's not a good leader to have. It's important to understand speed sometimes is bad, but slowness is also at times bad. One of the things he had to forsake was his father and family. That can't be easy. And sometimes for you to become a good leader, You need to be frank with your father about what it means to commit yourself to that group, what it will mean in terms of time, what it will mean in terms of relationship with him. And that will be something that you need to ask yourself whether you have actually been with it. So you cannot be what they normally call it, tied to your mother's apron and still hope to be a good leader. It means you must continue respecting your parents, honoring them, but you must be able to make your own decisions. Your parents are not in the group, so they don't have the details. And then you're an adult. That's how you become a leader in the group. So the group can't expect that every decision you make, you have to run back to your parents. This guy called Andrew clearly made a clean break, because he had told immediately, without taking too much time, he left his father, he left his family. What the father must have felt about this, it's not described in the scriptures. We don't know about what the father felt, that these people have not even given notice to the job they were doing and the business they were doing. But one wonders if Andrew and Peter's father tried to talk them out of this idea of following a young rabbi, but maybe he failed to convince them. Then he is left dumbfounded. You know, what we are learning is that for you to be a leader, you must love the master, you must love the vision, you must love the following of the people way above relationships. And 3 is for Jesus, he actually stated clearly that you are not my disciple unless you hate your mother and father. And I don't think he meant hate them. It means you love me so much higher that your love for your parents is like actually hatred. Because the love for me is much, much higher. That's how to become a great leader. When you don't make a quick commitment without thinking. But once you commit, you are totally with it. And what happens is that the people you call into the mission, once they see your commitment, will also become committed. It's like contagious. And because of that commitment, the mission of the group will progress faster, and you'll be able to realize your vision much earlier than if you didn't have such a leader. Now Andrew is turning out is such a leader with a great, great commitment. And that's one of the things that we ask. Many people want to be pastors and leaders of the church, but the wife messes up the church because he cannot tell her. The wife is not in the boardroom, doesn't know the things that were discussed. Then she comes and does the opposite. But he dare not tell her, that's not the way we agreed things should be done. And within no time, people say, wait a minute, we decided against that. How come she's doing this? Within no time, you find people dropping off your mission, because you have not created a proper line between the church and your family. Both of them are important. God who has called you to your family, you must look after your family well. God has called you to the church, you must look after the church well. But commitment to be a leader of the church means you may have to protect the church from the wrong things from your children or from your family. You know, Prophet Eli, that was his weakness. Because he was a priest, the chief priest, the sons automatically became junior priests. But then they started misbehaving. They were immoral, sleeping with women in the temple. My goodness, it was terrible. But instead of getting righteous anger and dealing with his sons, it's just like they got a pat on the back of their hand. God was so unhappy that he punished Eli. And before punishing, he actually used a small boy called Samuel to talk to him. And I think as a leader, you need to understand that you cannot abandon your family. You must be committed to your family. You must do the very best for them. But if they are not part and parcel of the project you are doing, you must ensure you yourself are the one who is in both. Not everybody else is in both. And you must ensure that you don't mix the two to the detriment of the project and or the detriment of your family. Of course, it's also possible to commit yourself to the project, like the church, and forget your family. Again, God will not be happy with you. Isn't that why he says that if you forget your family, especially the smallest family unit, he says you are not an unbeliever, you are worse than an unbeliever. That's what Timothy 5 is saying. So it means the family matters and must be looked after, but you must understand you are in both yourself and commit yourself. This young man called Andrew, committed himself to Jesus and was therefore able to walk with him to wherever he was going, where he had accepted. He said, "Come to me, I'll make you fishers of men." And they agreed. And they spent the rest of their life doing exactly that. You know, the name Andrew means manly or manhood or valor. What a good name. Since God often uses names to mean something, maybe it's also describing his character. He's a man of valor. A manly man, some people might call him. What does that mean? Maybe it means he was a strong man. After all, if you have to be a fisherman, you require strength, physical stature. You know, Andrew, just like his brother Peter, in that kind of trade they were doing, there were people who knew rough waters, outdoor. And therefore that must have put him into great dangers at times. So he must have been exposed to the conditions that any person who is in fishing would have. Let's just look at Matthew chapter 4 verse 18. While walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called the brother, Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James son of Zebedee, and John's brother in the boat with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. You know, basically what you are learning, which is important about this one, is that a leader may require to use his physical strength, his natural gifts, in order to advance the project or the mission they have. And you have to use all your strength. Maybe that's why Jesus was using fishermen. He knew they were rough, and the mission he was going to give them would be rough. They were prepared psychologically, socially, and physically to be able to do the job. And you need to understand that. Sometimes you are a leader, you get into very emotionally charged areas. If you end up losing your cool, it could bring much more damage than if anybody else in the group lost their cool. You need to pray to God that He will give you the physical, emotional, and social strength. These days they are talking about emotional intelligence. The ability to, even if you're having emotions, to understand your own emotions and control them. But if somebody else has lost their emotional cool, you understand them and they can manage them. That's basically what you are learning. If you have to be a good leader, your natural gifts have a part to play in the kingdom or in the ministry or in the mission God has given you. But then, sometimes understanding your natural strength is also a way of understanding your natural weaknesses. And when you know your weaknesses, as a leader, you now know, when I get annoyed, this is the way I behave. So as soon as you are starting to feel the temperature rising, excuse yourself. Go somewhere else until you get cool. That way you are able to come back to come back and in a very cool manner deal with what the issue is. Because you understand yourself. You understand that you can easily lose your temper. So it becomes very easy for you. So we learn Andrew has these challenges he has to deal with. But had he been prepared by God through his career to have the physique and the emotional control that would help in the ministry. You know, from what we know from church history and what they call church tradition, there are writings that are not part of the Bible. Andrew kept bringing people to Christ even after Jesus' death. He never seemed to care about putting his own life at risk in order to carry out the mission Jesus had given him. It's actually believed that he was martyred by crucifixion in the city of Patras on the Mediterranean, which was on the northern coast of Peloponnese, which was actually part of Greece. You are committed to your mission, you are willing to take risks on it. It is interesting that he was crucified like Christ, but in the pattern or shape of an X. He said, no, don't put me on a cross similar to my Lord. So it was put on so tradition says, it was put on a cross that looked like an X. Of course, the X was also a Christian symbol and is now known as St. Andrew's Cross, because it was said that Andrew, like his brother Peter, considered himself unworthy of being crucified in the same manner as his Lord Jesus Christ. This must have been around AD 70. What are we learning? A leader must be ready to die for his purpose. I've argued elsewhere that if you are not ready to die, please know it's not only a matter of time before you compromise. Because people, if they are very unhappy with your project or unhappy with your values, it will reach a time when they finally will put you to a corner where you have to find a way of either compromising or you suffer in the process. Either you lose money, or sometimes they will even kill you. But the moment you are ready to die, you can be yourself, advance the kingdom or advance your project as a leader without fear or favor. And it will go places. Cowards never took things very far. So it's important to understand that courage at the risk of even death. Of course, we are using death, but there are many other smaller risks. Courage to face them, courage to risk them will help your group to go places. And that's a requirement for leadership. You know, given the fact that Andrew was likely crucified, like we have discussed, and according to tradition, like many of the other apostles, he must have gone well beyond Judea, because Patras is not in Judea. He understood the mission. You start in Jerusalem, you go to Judea, go to Samaria, then you go everywhere where humankind is. And he is not the only one, but he's one of the many that did not stay in Palestine. He went beyond Palestine. And he took the gospel wherever he went. Matthew chapter 28 was a great commission. Church historian Eusebius wrote that he may have brought the gospel to as far away as Kiev, which is in today's Ukraine. That would be quite a distance from Jerusalem. You know, any leader must be ready to move wherever duty calls, despite cultural differences. And you need to understand, for your project to grow, you can't start limiting it to a small geographical zone. You know, start limiting it to a small area because you're afraid of diversity. One of the things that will help your project to go is where you can get supplies from anywhere they are available, quality and price. You are willing to use any staff or any resources, irrespective of their tribal or race background, in as long as they have competence. You can stand the diversity requirements. You are willing to put somebody even into management who is not like you. Maybe you're a man, and you can see a woman is the one that is best placed to do something. You allow her to become the manager of an engineering department, although normally women are not given such roles. Why? For you, you are committed to the vision and mission of the group, and you try to use the best, irrespective of the diversity requirements. That's Andrew for you. He went to whoever did not know the gospel, even beyond the Jewish areas, where he would have to learn a new language in order to progress the matter. And I think it's important for you to understand that a leader must be ready to move wherever the calling takes him, irrespective of the diversity requirements that are going to be demanded. You know, Andrew's life is a very good example for all of us. And my prayer is that it will be a good example for you as a leader. Are you committed to the mission? For example, if you're a Christian, one of our mission is to bring people. Jesus said, I have other sheep outside this pasture. What does that mean? That he wants us to get them also. Do you have a commitment that makes you move from your comfort zone in order for the sake of helping others? Like Andrew, do you forsake, including your parents, in order to do the project that God has called you to? Of course, you may have to forsake your career. You may have to change your career to something that can help you do your calling. You may have to change where you are living in order to fit within your calling. You may have to determine who you marry in order to fulfill your calling, because your calling is overall. Therefore, everything else fits within what you feel God has called you to do. That was Andrew. How often have we told others, like Andrew told his brother, we have found the Messiah. That is the Christ, like we read in John chapter 1. I think we all need to have that Andrew commitment, where what you know and is good, nobody else will not know about it, beginning with your friends and relatives, and ever moving in wider circles, wider and wider circles, until you have actually reached to the so-called ends of the earth. That's really what you're talking about, good leadership. Good leadership, like Andrew, will require that. We don't know too much about Andrew, but we know enough to see him as a kind of a leader who sets a very good example for us. So it's my prayer that as you have gone through this life, that you look at it, that you must understand this thing about being fully committed to whatever God has called you to do. This idea of saying no to other competing priorities, callings, valuing the mission and your master beyond family, and using all your strength and experience and exposure in order to bring it to bear for the project, and willingness to die in order to progress whatever it is your calling is. I think that's what really we must do. If you want to leadership, set an example of your commitment to the project and your sacrifice for the project, and you'll see the whole group follow you, speeding up your progression to the end. Thank you.